I waited for them to leave, changed every lock, and installed security cameras. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Now let me tell you how I ended up hiding behind my own front door, watching my daughter-in-law give unauthorized house tours like she owned the place. Because trust me, nobody saw this coming. 3 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I was Margaret Stevens, 63 years old, recently widowed, and apparently stupid enough to believe my son Kevin and his wife Rebecca actually cared about my well-being. After Henry's funeral, they'd been so attentive, so concerned about me living alone in my old house. "Mom, you need something fresh, something to look forward to," Kevin had said, holding my hand like I was a fragile bird. Rebecca nodded earnestly, adding, "We just want you to be happy again." What they really wanted was my inheritance. Not that I knew it at the time. I thought their sudden interest in my finances was genuine concern. When I mentioned Henry's life insurance payout, their eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "You should invest in something stable," Rebecca suggested. "Real estate maybe." Kevin agreed immediately. "Something that will give you security and purpose." So when I saw the listing for the mansion on Elm Street, I fell in love instantly. Victorian architecture, wraparound porch, 6 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and enough space for the grandchildren I rarely got to see anymore. I could imagine holiday dinners, summer barbecues, Kevin and Rebecca finally having room to visit comfortably. The asking price was steep, but Henry's insurance money covered it completely. Here's where I made my first smart decision in months. Something told me to keep the purchase quiet. Maybe it was years of watching Rebecca's eyes narrow whenever I mentioned spending money on myself. Maybe it was intuition. Whatever it was, I bought that house under a trust, hired a property management company, and kept my mouth shut. For 6 weeks, I had contractors working day and night. New paint, updated kitchen, refinished hardwood floors, landscaping, the works. I wanted everything perfect before the big reveal. I imagined Kevin's face when I handed him the keys and told him this was their new family home. I pictured Rebecca's tears of joy, the grandchildren's excitement, the fresh start we'd all have together. Instead, I got the shock of my life. The morning I planned to surprise them, I arrived at the house early to do a final walkthrough. Everything was perfect. The chandelier sparkled, the marble countertops gleamed, and the master bedroom looked like something from a magazine. I was practically vibrating with excitement as I called Kevin. "Can you and Rebecca meet me for lunch? I have something wonderful to show you both." "Actually, Mom, Rebecca and I are looking at houses today. We found this amazing place that might be perfect for our family expansion." Kevin's voice carried that careful tone he used when he thought I might object to something. "Family expansion?" My heart skipped. "Are you having another baby?" "Well, not exactly. We're thinking about Rebecca's parents moving in with us. Her mom's arthritis is getting worse, and her dad needs someone to help manage his medications. We could really use a bigger place." I smiled, thinking how perfect the timing was. "That's wonderful, honey. Where are you looking?" "This gorgeous Victorian on Elm Street. 6 bedrooms, huge kitchen, perfect for multi-generational living. The only problem is the asking price. It's way out of our range." My stomach dropped. They were looking at my house. My surprise was about to become their disappointment when they discovered they couldn't afford it. "Unless, Kevin, what if I helped with the down payment, as an early inheritance?" The excitement in his voice was immediate. "Mom, that would be incredible. Are you sure? It's a lot of money." "I'm sure. Text me the address and I'll meet you there in an hour." I hung up and sat in my beautiful new kitchen, staring at my phone. This could work out even better than I'd planned. Instead of just giving them the house, I could let them think they were choosing it, then help them buy it. They'd feel like equal partners instead of charity cases. But when I arrived at Elm Street and saw Rebecca walking around the front yard like she already owned it, something felt off. She was pointing at different areas, gesturing expansively, talking to someone on her phone about my new garden plans and the master suite I'm designing. I parked across the street and watched. Kevin joined her, and they spent another 20 minutes measuring windows and discussing furniture placement. They weren't looking at the house like potential buyers. They were planning like people who already had keys. That's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, not buying the house, but trusting them to see it before I told them it was already mine. I decided to test them. When they finally called me over, I put on my best impressed face and let them give me the full tour of my own house. "Look at this kitchen, Mom," Rebecca gushed, running her hands over the marble counters I'd spent weeks choosing. "I can already see myself hosting dinner parties here. And this master bedroom?" She led me upstairs to the room I'd designed as my sanctuary. "This will be perfect for Kevin and me. Your room could be the one next to the guest bathroom, small but adequate. My room, in the house I bought, would be small but adequate." Kevin nodded enthusiastically. "The whole layout is perfect. Mom, you'd love the community here. Very quiet. Great neighbors. You could walk to the park every day." I managed to keep smiling, but inside I was calculating. They'd already decided I'd be living here, but not as an equal. I'd be the elderly relative tucked away in the smallest bedroom, grateful for whatever space they allowed me. The inheritance money I'd be providing for the down payment would become their house, their equity, their investment. "The only challenge," Rebecca continued, walking back toward the kitchen, "is that the sellers apparently want cash. No financing allowed. Something about a trust situation." Kevin sighed. "Which means we'd need the full purchase price up front. Even with Mom's help. We're talking about draining her entire inheritance just for the down payment on a mortgage we still couldn't qualify for." Rebecca's face fell dramatically. "So close to perfect, and it's just out of reach." They stood there looking defeated, and I realized this was my moment. I could reveal the truth, tell them the house was already theirs, and watch their faces light up with joy. Or I could wait and see what they did next. "What if we looked at something smaller?" I suggested carefully. "Something more within our actual budget?" Rebecca's expression hardened slightly. "Margaret, this house is perfect for our needs. Kevin's father would have wanted us to use his money wisely, to invest in our family's future. This is exactly the kind of opportunity he would have encouraged." The casual manipulation took my breath away, using Henry's memory to justify spending his life insurance money on their dream house. And the way she said "our needs" while planning to stick me in the worst bedroom. "You're right," I said slowly. "Henry would want us to make smart decisions. Let me think about this overnight." That evening, I sat in my current house, staring at the property deed for the mansion. My name, clear as day, as the legal owner. I'd been so excited to give them this gift. Now I was wondering if I should give them anything at all. The next morning, Kevin called before I'd finished my coffee. "Mom, we've been thinking about that house all night." Rebecca barely slept. "We really believe this could be the fresh start our family needs." "I understand it's a beautiful house, Kevin. The thing is, we went by there again this morning, and there's already another family looking at it. The realtor says they might put in an offer today." I almost laughed. There was no other family, no competing offer. I owned the house. But Kevin was lying to create urgency, pressure me into making a quick decision with my money. "That's unfortunate," I said mildly. "Mom, we need to move fast. If you're serious about helping us, we need to make an offer today. Full asking price, cash. That's my entire inheritance, Kevin. I know it's a big ask, but think about the return on investment. Property values in that neighborhood are only going up. And you'd have a beautiful place to live, with family nearby to take care of you as you get older. Take care of me, in the small bedroom, while they built equity with my money. Let me call the realtor directly," I said. "If I'm investing this much, I want to speak with them myself." There was a pause. "Mom, Rebecca's already been handling the communication. She's built a good rapport with the agent. Maybe it's better if she continues." "Kevin, if I'm writing a check for $350,000, I'm speaking to the realtor myself." After I hung up, I called the property management company I'd hired. "Sarah, I need you to list the house again immediately. Same price, same terms. And if anyone calls asking about it, tell them the previous offer fell through. Mrs. Stevens, you own the house. Why would you want to list it?" "Because I want to see exactly how far my family will go to manipulate me." 2 hours later, Kevin called back. "Great news, Mom. The other family's offer was rejected. The house is still available, but we need to move fast." I felt something cold settle in my chest. My own son was lying to my face, creating fake urgency to pressure me into spending my life savings on a house I already owned. "Wonderful, Kevin. Set up a meeting with the realtor for tomorrow. All 3 of us should be there to discuss terms. Actually, Rebecca thinks it might be better if you wire the money first, then we handle the details." Of course she did. The next morning, I received the most manipulative text message of my life. Mom, the sellers accepted another offer. We lost the house. Rebecca's heartbroken. She was so excited about finally having space for her parents and maybe giving you grandchildren a real home. I'm sorry we couldn't make it work. I stared at my phone in my kitchen, surrounded by moving boxes. Because here's what Kevin didn't know. I'd spent the previous evening packing. Not to move into the mansion with them, but to move into it alone. I texted back, "That's disappointing. I'm sure something else will come along." Within an hour, Rebecca called. Her voice was thick with tears that sounded remarkably fake to my newly skeptical ears. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I know how excited you were about the house too. Kevin told me you were looking forward to the garden and the big kitchen for holiday dinners. Interesting. I'd never mentioned being excited about anything specific. She was projecting what she thought I should feel. These things happen, Rebecca. The realtor said the other buyers might back out. Sometimes deals fall through at the last minute. If you're still interested in helping us, we could stay in contact with the agent. See if it becomes available again." I almost admired the persistence. Create false hope. Keep me emotionally invested. Maintain the possibility that my money could still buy their dream house. I'll think about it. That afternoon, I drove to the mansion one last time before moving in. I wanted to savor the moment when I walked through the front door as the rightful owner, not the elderly mother being granted permission to live in the smallest bedroom. But as I turned onto Elm Street, I saw Rebecca's car in the driveway. I parked at the end of the block and watched. Rebecca was walking around the house with an older woman I didn't recognize, pointing at windows, gesturing toward the garden areas, clearly giving some kind of tour. They spent 20 minutes outside before Rebecca unlocked the front door with a key I definitely hadn't given her. A key she shouldn't have had. To a house she thought we'd lost to other buyers. I sat in my car, fury building with each passing minute. Rebecca was showing my house to someone, using a key she'd somehow obtained, barely hours after telling me we'd lost our chance to buy it. Then I watched her bring out what was clearly a measuring tape. They were measuring my living room, my dining room, my kitchen, planning furniture arrangements for a house Rebecca thought belonged to someone else, unless she knew something I didn't. Unless this whole charade about other buyers and lost opportunities was covering up something much worse. I called the property management company. "Sarah, has anyone contacted you about accessing the Elm Street property?" "No, Mrs. Stevens. You're the only one with keys. What about showing it to potential buyers? The listing was taken down yesterday when you asked us to. No one else should have access. But someone did have access. Someone was in my house right now, planning God knows what." I made a decision that would change everything. I drove home, called a locksmith, and had every lock on the mansion changed within 2 hours. Then I called a security company and had cameras installed at every entrance, inside and out. If Rebecca wanted to play games with my property, she was going to discover I could play them better. The locksmith was expensive. The security system was expensive. But watching Rebecca try to use her mysterious key on my front door the next morning? Priceless. I was sitting in the living room, boxes unpacked, coffee in hand, when I heard someone trying to unlock the front door. The security app on my phone showed Rebecca on the porch, looking confused as her key failed to work. She tried it several times, then walked around to the back door. Same result. Then she called Kevin. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her gesturing angrily at the house, clearly frustrated that her secret access had been cut off. 20 minutes later, Kevin called me. "Mom, the strangest thing happened. Rebecca drove by that house we were looking at, and she thinks someone might have changed the locks. She's worried there might be squatters or vandalism." Why would Rebecca be checking on a house we don't own? A pause. She thought she saw broken windows from the street. She was just being a good neighbor. The lies were getting more elaborate, but they were still lies. Rebecca hadn't seen broken windows because there weren't any. She'd been trying to access my house with a key she shouldn't have had. "Kevin, how did Rebecca get a key to that house?" Another pause. Longer this time. "What key?" "She tried to unlock the front door this morning. I saw her on the security cameras." Silence. Then Kevin's voice, carefully controlled. "Mom, what security cameras?" "The ones I had installed yesterday. On my house. The house I own." The sound that came through the phone might have been Kevin choking on his coffee. Or it might have been the sound of someone's entire deception collapsing in real time. Your house? His voice was barely a whisper. The house I bought 6 weeks ago with Henry's life insurance money. The house I've been renovating while you and Rebecca plan to manipulate me into funding your dream home with my inheritance. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he spoke. Mom, we need to talk. Yes, Kevin, we certainly do. But first, I think you need to explain to your wife that trespassing on someone else's property is illegal, even when you think you're clever enough not to get caught. That evening, as I sat in my beautiful dining room eating takeout Chinese food off paper plates because I hadn't unpacked my dishes yet, I thought about how different this moment was from what I'd originally planned. I should have been hosting Kevin and Rebecca for a celebration dinner, toasting their new home and our bright future together. Instead, I was alone in my house, watching security footage of my daughter-in-law trying to break in, while my son prepared to explain how they'd planned to steal my inheritance through emotional manipulation. But here's the thing about rock bottom. The view from the top is so much better when you've earned it yourself. Kevin arrived at 8 p.m. sharp, looking like he'd aged 5 years since our phone call. Rebecca wasn't with him, which told me everything I needed to know about who was really driving their scheme. Mom, I don't even know where to begin. How about with how your wife got a key to my house? He sat heavily in my new living room chair, the one I'd picked specifically because it was comfortable enough for elderly guests, but sturdy enough to last decades. The irony wasn't lost on me. She befriended the property manager's assistant, told her she was your daughter-in-law, that you'd asked her to check on the renovation progress while you were dealing with grief. Sarah's assistant gave her a key for family access. I had to admire the audacity, even as it made my blood boil. So Rebecca has been monitoring my house purchase for weeks? She found out about it 3 days after you signed the papers. Your bank called to verify the wire transfer, and Rebecca answered your phone. She told them she was your financial power of attorney. The lies kept getting bigger. I never gave her power of attorney. She knows that. But the bank representative didn't ask for documentation over the phone. Rebecca got enough information to figure out what you'd done. I poured myself a glass of wine, noting that my hands were perfectly steady. 6 months ago, this level of betrayal would have destroyed me. Now it just felt like confirmation of what I'd suspected. So instead of talking to me directly, you decided to manipulate me into funding your mortgage on a house I already owned. Kevin's face crumpled. It was Rebecca's idea. She said if we confronted you directly, you might get defensive about spending so much money. She thought if we could make you think it was our idea to buy the house, you'd feel better about helping us. Help you buy a house from myself? We didn't think you'd actually want to live there alone. Rebecca figured you'd eventually want to downsize, maybe move into a senior community. We could buy it from you at fair market value. You'd get your money back plus appreciation. Everyone would win. I stared at my son, this man I'd raised to be honest and kind, and saw someone I barely recognized. Kevin, do you hear yourself? You plan to trick me into giving you money for a house I already owned, then convince me to sell it to you later? When you say it like that, it sounds criminal. Because it is criminal. It's called fraud. He put his head in his hands. We never meant for it to go this far. Rebecca just got excited about the house, started planning, making lists. She thought if she could show you how perfect it would be for all of us, with me in the smallest bedroom. That was never the plan. I pulled out my phone and showed him the security footage from that morning. Rebecca trying multiple keys, walking around the house, peering in windows, calling him in frustration. This was never the plan either, I suppose. The next morning, Rebecca called me directly for the first time in months. Her voice had lost all pretense of sweetness. Margaret, Kevin told me about your little revelation. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Oh, I understand perfectly. You've been planning to defraud me for weeks. That's a very harsh way to put it. We were trying to find a solution that worked for everyone. I almost laughed. A solution where you get a mansion and I get a small bedroom and the privilege of funding your mortgage? You're twisting our intentions. We never wanted to hurt you. Rebecca, you answered my phone and impersonated someone with legal authority over my finances. You obtained keys to my property under false pretenses. You've been showing my house to other people without permission. What part of that was meant to help me? A long pause. Then her voice changed completely, dropping the fake concern and revealing something much colder. Fine. You want to play hardball? You bought that house to manipulate us. You knew we were looking in that neighborhood, knew we needed more space. You bought it specifically to dangle it in front of us, then snatch it away. The accusation was so ridiculous I actually did laugh. Rebecca, I bought the house as a surprise gift for your family. I was planning to hand you the deed and tell you it was yours. Right. That's why you kept it secret for 6 weeks. I kept it secret because I wanted it to be perfect before I surprised you. I had contractors working around the clock to make sure everything was exactly right for your family. Another pause. Prove it. I'm sorry? Prove you bought it as a gift. Show me the paperwork that says you intended to transfer ownership to Kevin. I realized then that Rebecca had never believed I might be generous. In her mind, every action had an ulterior motive. Every kindness was manipulation. She couldn't conceive of someone spending their inheritance on a gift for family members who'd been taking her for granted. I don't need to prove my intentions to you, Rebecca, but I can prove that you've been trespassing on my property. Kevin's your son. Family has a right to respect boundaries. You lost that right when you decided to lie and scheme instead of having an honest conversation. The conversation ended with Rebecca hanging up on me. 20 minutes later, Kevin called. Mom, Rebecca's upset. She feels like you're punishing her for caring about our family's future. Kevin, your wife committed multiple crimes. She's not the victim here. Couldn't we all just sit down and talk this through? Find a way to make this work for everyone? I looked around my beautiful house, thinking about how many compromises I'd made over the years, how many times I'd given in to keep peace in the family. Kevin, I'm done making things work for everyone else at my own expense. For 2 weeks, my phone rang constantly. Kevin called every morning, Rebecca every afternoon, sometimes together in the evening. The pattern was predictable. Guilt, bargaining, anger, more guilt. Mom, Rebecca's pregnant. That stopped me cold. Pregnant? She just found out. We weren't going to tell anyone yet, but with everything going on. Kevin's voice carried a weight I recognized. This wasn't just news, it was ammunition. Congratulations. I'm happy for you both. The thing is, with a baby coming, we really need more space. Rebecca's morning sickness is already bad, and she's worried about stress affecting the pregnancy. And there it was. The pregnancy card, played exactly when I'd started feeling strong enough to maintain my boundaries. Kevin, I understand you need more space. There are many lovely houses in your price range. But Mom, this house is perfect. Rebecca's already planned the nursery, picked out paint colors. She's emotionally invested. In my house, that she tried to steal from me. She never tried to steal anything. She just got excited about the possibility. I hung up and called my lawyer. If this was going to become a legal battle, I wanted to be prepared. Mrs. Stevens, based on what you've told me, your daughter-in-law may have committed identity theft, fraud, and trespassing. Do you want to press charges? I thought about my grandchild, growing up with a mother who thought manipulation was normal family behavior. Not yet, but I want everything documented in case this escalates. That evening, Rebecca showed up at my door. She looked genuinely terrible, pale and exhausted in a way that suggested the pregnancy news was real. Margaret, can we please talk? Just the two of us. No Kevin, no lawyers, no games. Against my better judgment, I let her in. I'm sorry, she said, sitting on the edge of my sofa like she was ready to run. I handled everything wrong. When I found out about the house, I panicked. Kevin and I have been struggling financially more than we've told you. His business has been slow. I haven't worked since we got married. And we were behind on rent. It was the first honest thing she'd said in months. Why didn't you just ask for help? Because you've already done so much. The down payment on our current place, the car repair last year, Christmas gifts for Kevin when he couldn't afford them. I was embarrassed to ask for more. I understood that feeling. The pride that makes you do stupid things rather than admit you need help. So, instead of asking, you decided to trick me? I thought if I could make it seem like your idea to help us buy this house, you'd feel good about it instead of resentful. I thought I was protecting your feelings. Rebecca's confession should have made me feel better, but it only made me angrier. Because underneath her apology was the same condescending assumption that had driven everything else, that I was too fragile to handle the truth. Rebecca, I've been managing my own feelings for 63 years. I don't need you to protect me from my own generosity. I know that now. I made a mistake. You made several mistakes. Identity theft, fraud, trespassing, lying to my son about your actions. She flinched. Kevin doesn't know about all of it. What doesn't he know? Rebecca looked around my living room, at the furniture I'd chosen, the photos I'd hung, the life I'd built without their input. He doesn't know I've been planning to convince you to sign the house over to us as an early inheritance. For tax purposes. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Explain. My uncle's an accountant. He said if you give us the house now, instead of leaving it to Kevin in your will, it would save thousands in estate taxes. I thought after we were all living here together for a while, I could bring it up casually. The scheme was even more elaborate than I'd realized. Rebecca hadn't just wanted to manipulate me into funding their mortgage. She'd wanted to manipulate me into giving up ownership entirely. And if I'd refused, I would have suggested that since you were getting older, it might be smart to transfer assets to family members to protect them from potential nursing home costs. Every word made it worse. Rebecca had researched ways to separate me from my assets, planned conversations designed to make me feel like transferring ownership was my idea. Rebecca, do you understand that what you're describing is elder financial abuse? She went very still. That's not what this was. What else would you call systematically planning to trick an elderly family member into signing over valuable assets? I was trying to help our family. You were trying to help yourself, at my expense. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, I could hear children playing in the neighborhood park. Normal sounds of normal families living normal lives without elaborate deception. What happens now? Rebecca asked finally. Now you and Kevin figure out your housing situation without involving my money or my property. You learn to budget, get second jobs if necessary, find a place you can actually afford. And the baby? We'll grow up with parents who understand the difference between asking for help and committing fraud. Rebecca started crying then. The kind of exhausted sobbing that comes when someone finally understands they've lost everything through their own choices. Margaret, please. I know I messed up, but we could still make this work. You could live here, we could pay rent, everyone could have what they need. I looked at this woman who'd spent months planning to manipulate me out of my home and my money, who was now begging me to let her do exactly what she'd originally schemed for. Rebecca, the fact that you think I should trust you with anything after what you've done tells me you still don't understand how badly you've behaved. 6 months later, I hosted my first dinner party in the mansion. Not for Kevin and Rebecca, who'd moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town and were slowly rebuilding their relationship with honesty instead of manipulation. Not for Rebecca's parents, who'd apparently found other living arrangements when their daughter's grand plans fell through. I hosted dinner for my neighbors. The couple next door who'd brought me flowers when I moved in, the widow across the street who'd invited me to her book club, the young family at the end of the block whose children sometimes helped me carry groceries. These people, who barely knew me, had shown me more genuine kindness in 6 months than my own family had in years. Kevin and I were slowly repairing our relationship. He'd started calling every Sunday, conversations that were awkward but honest. He'd apologized repeatedly, had insisted on family counseling, and was working to understand how he'd let Rebecca's manipulations poison his judgment. Rebecca and I maintained a polite distance. She'd had a healthy baby girl, my granddaughter, whom I visited once a month under Kevin's supervision. Rebecca was civil during these visits, but I could see in her eyes that she still thought I'd overreacted, that I should have been grateful for her elaborate schemes to involve me in their lives. But the real revelation came from my lawyer, who'd done some digging into Rebecca's background after I'd told him the full story. Mrs. Stevens, I thought you should know. This wasn't Rebecca's first time manipulating elderly family members. Her grandmother signed over her house to Rebecca's parents 5 years ago under very similar circumstances. Fake concerns about property maintenance, suggestions about tax benefits, pressure to make decisions quickly for the family's good. The pattern was clear. Rebecca hadn't stumbled into elder abuse through desperation. She'd learned it, practiced it, perfected it as a family tradition. What happened to the grandmother? She died in a state nursing home 2 years later. The family sold her house immediately after the funeral. I thought about how close I'd come to the same fate. If I hadn't kept the house purchase secret, if I hadn't installed security cameras, if I'd been just a little more trusting or a little more isolated, I would have ended up exactly like Rebecca's grandmother. Instead, I was sitting in my beautiful dining room, surrounded by friends who'd chosen to know me rather than family who'd chosen to use me. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. "Mom, Rebecca wanted me to ask if you'd consider being the baby's guardian in our will, in case something happens to us." I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about trust and responsibility and the difference between loving someone and enabling them. I texted back, "I'll consider it if Rebecca completes a financial literacy course and commits to family therapy for at least a year." His response came quickly. "She says that's unnecessary. We just need a simple yes or no." I deleted the conversation and went back to planning my garden. Some people never learn, but some of us learn exactly enough to save ourselves. And sometimes, that's the only victory that matters. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.